The forgotten scroll, the city of Aman, was asleep beneath a velvet sky scattered with stars. In a small apartment near the outskirts of the old city, a young Islamic historian named Zaid Rahman was bent over a dusty manuscript. Zaid wasn't just a scholar, he was a seeker, curious, patient, and unwavering in his pursuit of divine truth. His life's mission was to uncover lost or forgotten Islamic knowledge that had been buried by time or negligence. This evening, he had stumbled upon something extraordinary in a centuries-old Arabic scroll sent to him from Morocco, a mention of a mysterious manuscript written during the Abbasid Caliphate, known as the Luminous Shield. The manuscript spoke of a divine power hidden within Surah Al-Baqarah, something most people had forgotten or never been told. Zaid's hands trembled as he translated a faded line. The heart that recites Al-Baqarah with belief is protected, not just in this world, but in the veils between life and death, where even the jinn dare not approach. He paused. The words resonated with depth, not just literary or spiritual, but something ancient, alive. It was as though the paper itself had energy. That night, Zaid couldn't sleep. He kept hearing whispers, not from the world around him, but from inside, echoing like a calling. The dream, that same night, Zaid drifted into a powerful dream. He found himself in an enormous desert under a moonlit sky. In the distance, there was a shimmering dome built of golden light. As he approached, he saw that the structure was made entirely of verses from the Qur'an, floating mid-air, weaving in and out like strands of light. At its center was a glowing doorway, pulsing with the verse, "This is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah." Surah Al-Baqarah 2:2. He stepped inside, and suddenly the ground trembled. A majestic voice spoke, not terrifying, but commanding. "Zaid, the time has come to remind the world of what was forgotten." The power of Surah Al-Baqarah is not a story. It is a shield, a healing, a weapon and a miracle. You must uncover it. He woke up drenched in sweat, heart racing. It felt more real than a dream. Zaid knew that this was the beginning of something far bigger than himself, the hidden manuscript. Over the next few days, Zaid dug deeper. He discovered references from early scholars like Imam al-Ghazali and Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah, hinting that Surah Al-Baqarah held secrets beyond the common understanding. It wasn't just a long chapter of the Qur'an, it was a living protection, a divine armor. He came across a peculiar hadith narrated in various collections. "Do not turn your houses into graves. Verily, Shaytaan flees from the house in which..." Surah Al-Baqarah is recited, Sahih Muslim. Zaid wondered, if Shaytaan flees from this surah, what else does it repel? What unknown forces does it protect us from? He reached out to his old mentor, Sheikh Abdul Rahman, a well-respected scholar living in Fez. When Zaid explained what he'd found, the sheikh went silent for a moment, then whispered, "Zaid, you're not the first to search for this. Many years ago, I came across a similar trail, but it leads to places where belief is tested and fear becomes real. You must be cautious. The path you are on will change you." The story of the farmer to help Zaid understand the reality of Surah Al-Baqarah's power. Sheikh Abdul Rahman told him a story few had heard. In a small village near Marrakesh, a farmer named Harith lived with his family on a plot of land believed to be cursed. Strange events plagued their home. Crops failed, animals disappeared, and shadows moved without light. The villagers whispered that the land was inhabited by jinn, and no one dared come close. One night, after a series of terrifying events, an old traveller passed by and stayed with Harith. The traveller noticed something strange. The house was quiet, but there was a deep heaviness in the air. The traveller asked, "Do you ever recite the Qur'an here?" Harith replied, "Only occasionally. I know little." The man said, "Recite Surah Al-Baqarah every night for 40 days. Do not skip even one night." Out of desperation, Harith obeyed. Every night he recited the entire surah. On the first night the walls trembled. On the third night he heard screams. On the seventh he saw black smoke leaving the land. By the 40th night the air had changed. The land bloomed. Peace returned. No more shadows, no more fear. Harith became known as the guardian of Baqarah. His descendants still protect that land, where it said no evil spirit has returned to this day. Modern ignorance, Zayd realized that today many Muslims don't fully grasp the active power of the Qur'an. We treat it as a holy book for blessings at weddings, funerals, or Ramadan. But the early Muslims lived it, recited it, and used it as armor, not just for the soul, but for the body, the home, the family. Surah Al-Baqarah wasn't called the expeller of Shaytaan for no reason. Its verses cover every aspect of human life: law, morality, purity, belief, spiritual warfare, patience, protection, and healing. But what if it held even more? An ancient map. Just when Zayd thought the trail had gone cold, a small envelope arrived from Morocco. It contained a map drawn with Arabic calligraphy. At the center was an ancient symbol resembling the word Nur, light, surrounded by Quranic verses, all from Surah Al-Baqarah. A note was attached. To find what was hidden, you must walk where the light once lived. Follow the verses. Begin with Ayah 255. Zayd's heart skipped a beat. Ayah 255 was Ayatul Kursi, the verse of the throne, regarded as the most powerful verse in the Qur'an. Allah, there is no deity except Him, the ever-living, the sustainer of existence. He recited it aloud, and suddenly the lights in his room flickered. His laptop screen flashed. A folder he had never seen before appeared on his desktop titled The Shield. He opened it. Inside were files, scanned images of ancient manuscripts, testimonials, and most importantly, a journal written by someone named Amir ibn Tariq, dated over 200 years ago, titled The Secret Power of Al-Baqarah, a chronicle of divine war. The journal of Amir ibn Tariq, the old journal Zayd had discovered, was bound in aged leather, its cover marked with the word Sir, Arabic for secret. It was the work of Amir ibn Tariq, a scholar warrior of the Abbasid era. The entries were in beautiful classical Arabic, their script faded but still readable. As Zayd turned the first page, a chill ran down his spine. The introduction read, "This is not a book for the weak of faith. It holds the records of a war unseen by human eyes, a war fought not with swords, but with the verses of Surah Al-Baqarah. If you are reading this, then Allah has chosen you to carry on the shield of light." Zayd took a deep breath. This was no longer just academic research. He had become part of something timeless. The City of Fire. The journal began in the year 161 AH, 777 CE, during the golden age of the Abbasid Caliphate. Amir ibn Tariq was dispatched to a town in present-day Iraq that was plagued by unspeakable disturbances. The locals called it Madinat al-Nar, the City of Fire. The people reported that crops dried overnight, children screamed in their sleep, and structures collapsed without cause. Physicians failed, guards fled, and scholars were silenced by fear. The Caliph, desperate for help, sent Amir, a warrior, yes, but also a Hafiz of Qur'an and student of divine sciences. When Amir entered the town, he wrote, "I felt the weight of evil in the air. It clung to the skin like oil and poisoned the breath. Yet the moment I recited Ayatul Kursi, the winds changed. Something heard me, something fled." For 7 days, Amir fasted and recited Surah Al-Baqarah in its entirety every night. On the 8th day, he witnessed a miracle. Blackened trees turned green, wells began to refill, and a strange mist that had shrouded the town began to lift. He wasn't done yet. The 7 shadows one night, as Amir recited near the town's ancient temple. He saw 7 dark figures, tall, faceless, and wrapped in smoke, standing at a distance. They did not approach, but they didn't leave either. He called out, "In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, leave this place, for it is now guarded by His word." The figures screamed, not in voices but with a sound, like breaking glass, and vanished into the earth. Amir later wrote, "These were not jinns of mischief, but ancient ones, guardians of false knowledge, worshippers of forgotten fire." They could not withstand Surah Al-Baqarah, for every verse was like a sword to their souls. Back to the present, Zayd read each line with growing awe. The parallels between Amir's journey and his own were undeniable. As he finished the first half of the journal, he discovered something unexpected, a hand-drawn map within the pages, marked with Quranic verses. One verse caught his attention. "Then we gave you after them authority in the land." Surah Al-Baqarah 2251. The location referenced was an ancient ruin in northern Jordan, Qasr al-Zayt, a forgotten fortress lost to time. Zayd packed his bag, carried his copy of the Qur'an, and set out on his first field expedition. The fortress of Secrets Qasr al-Zayt was buried under layers of rock and sand. It took Zayd 2 days of digging with local guides to uncover a staircase leading underground. The air was thick, but he pressed forward. At the bottom was a circular room with inscriptions on the walls, all from Surah Al-Baqarah. At the center stood a pedestal upon which was placed a stone tablet with the engraving, "Only those who believe, recite, and act shall unveil the Nur." Zayd sat and began to recite Surah Al-Baqarah aloud. As his voice echoed through the chamber, the room began to glow faintly. He reached Ayah 286, the final verse of the surah. "Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear." Suddenly, the wall behind the pedestal cracked open, revealing a hidden chamber. Inside, Zayd found ancient scrolls, each wrapped in cloth embroidered with Quranic verses. One of them bore the title, "The Light of the Shield, Preserved for the Final Days." Testimony of the dying Imam. Among the scrolls was the testimony of a man named Imam Shams al-Deen, written in 1100 AH. It described a vision he had in which the world would fall into confusion, faith would weaken, and people would forget the power of the Qur'an. In that vision, he saw Muslims running in fear, their homes darkened by forces they could not see. But then a group arose, reciters of Surah Al-Baqarah, whose homes shone with divine light. Wherever they stood, the shadows dissolved. They healed the sick, guided the lost, and stood strong when others fell. The Imam's final words were, "When the age of deception arrives, remember Al-Baqarah. It is not just verses, it is Nur, it is a fortress, it is a promise." Zayd was overwhelmed. He now understood. This surah was not meant to be casually read or only recited for barakah at weddings and funerals. It was meant to be lived, used, and relied upon. The strange encounter as Zayd left the ruins and walked back to his jeep. A mysterious man dressed in white approached him on the dirt road. His face was veiled by the sun, his voice calm but firm. "You have opened the first door, but the journey is not over." Zayd replied, "Who are you?" The man didn't answer directly. He handed Zayd a piece of parchment with just one verse written on it. "Indeed, this Qur'an guides to that which is most suitable." Surah Al-Isra 17:9. Then he added, "You must return home. Test what you have learned. Witness its power with your own eyes. The true miracle will not be found in scrolls, but in practice." Before Zayd could ask more, the man vanished into the dust. The test at home. Upon returning to Amman, Zaid's neighbor came to him with a desperate look. His home had been plagued with unseen disturbances, strange whispers, sleep paralysis, children crying without cause. Every imam they had called had failed. Zaid didn't hesitate. That night he entered their home with a single mission: to recite Surah Al-Baqarah completely. He began right after Isha prayer and recited slowly, intentionally, from beginning to end. Alif Lam Mim. This is the book about which there is no doubt. As the verses filled the rooms, the air began to change. What was once heavy became light. The children, previously restless, fell into deep sleep. The temperature dropped, and then a loud crashing noise came from the attic. Zaid ran upstairs, but found nothing except a burnt black feather. He picked it up. It turned to ash in his hands. The next morning, the neighbor reported no further disturbances. Peace had returned. The battle of the unseen. Zaid sat quietly in his study, the air thick with purpose. In front of him lay the recovered scrolls, the Journal of Amir ibn Tariq, and his own notes. The testimonies, the miracles, the encounters, none of it could be ignored. What began as a historian's curiosity had turned into a divine mission. Now Zaid knew it was time to share this knowledge with the world, but as soon as he began preparing his first public lecture, strange things started to happen. Whispers in the walls. For the first time since returning from the ruins, Zaid noticed unsettling occurrences in his own home. Doors creaked without wind, lights flickered for no reason. Most alarming of all, his Qur'an, placed neatly on his shelf, was found lying open in different places each morning. One night as he performed tahajjud, he heard it, whispers in a language he didn't recognize. They weren't loud, but they felt close, inside the walls, near the ceiling, even behind him. He froze. Then his eyes fell on the open Qur'an. It was turned to Surah Al-Baqarah. He immediately began reciting from Ayatul Kursi, 2:255. As he recited, the whispers stopped. The air grew still. The fear lifted. His Kursi extends over the heavens and the earth, and their preservation tires him not, and he is the Most High, the Most Great. That night, Zaid realized, the moment you teach what is sacred, you will be tested by what is hidden. The lecture, despite the spiritual attacks, Zaid went ahead with his lecture. It was held in a small masjid in East Amman. The room filled with students, scholars, and curious minds. Zaid spoke with conviction and clarity. Surah Al-Baqarah is not just long, it is alive. It is a fortress. In it, Allah teaches us how to guard ourselves, how to fight evil without weapons, and how to protect our families from the unseen forces that seek to destroy faith from within. He shared the story of Harith the farmer, the visions of Imam Shams al-Deen, and his own encounter in the ruins. The crowd was silent, drawn into every word. But in the corner of the masjid sat an old man with piercing eyes, who seemed unmoved. After the lecture, he approached Zaid and said quietly, "You have spoken the truth. But be warned, there are those who profit from darkness, and they will not let you shine light so easily." He handed Zaid a folded note and walked away. The note read, "Go to Beirut, seek the Marid manuscript. Your next battle awaits." Takis Marid manuscript. Zaid traveled to Beirut, Lebanon, where he met a retired archivist named Tariq bin Khaled, who had once worked with rare Islamic relics. Tariq confirmed the existence of the Marid manuscript, an ancient document sealed away due to its mysterious nature. The manuscript was said to be written by a Moroccan scholar who had spent his life researching jinn possession and Quranic cures. Tariq agreed to show Zaid the document. Inside a dark vault, protected behind glass and lead lining, Zaid read the manuscript. It revealed one chilling fact. Surah Al-Baqarah weakens the Marid, the most powerful and rebellious of jinn. But its full power is unlocked only when recited with complete sincerity and consistency. The heart must be aligned with the tongue. The manuscript included records of possession cases where Surah Al-Baqarah was the only thing that worked. Not ruqya formulas, not exorcisms, just the direct recitation of the surah again and again until the jinn surrendered. One entry read, "On the 13th day the jinn screamed, 'Remove the verses, remove the light, I cannot bear it,' and fled, never to return." The school teacher's case on. His way back from Beirut, Zayd received an email from a woman named Samira, a schoolteacher from Cairo. She had heard his lecture online and begged for help. Her son, age 11, had been having terrifying visions, stopped speaking, and seemed to be controlled by something unnatural. Doctors had no answers. Imams had failed. Zayd agreed to fly there. When he entered their home, he instantly felt the presence of something wrong. The boy sat silently in the corner, eyes wide, unmoving. Zayd asked Samira, "Has anyone tried Surah Al-Baqarah?" She nodded. "Yes, but only small parts." Zayd said, "Tonight we will recite it all, from beginning to end, without fear." He sat beside the boy and began, "Alif, Lam, Mim. This is the book in which there is no doubt." An hour passed. Then two. Near verse 163, the boy screamed, a voice not his own. Zayd didn't stop. By the time he reached Ayah 255, Ayatul Kursi, the room grew cold, the lights blew out, and a foul smell filled the air. But Zayd's voice only grew stronger. "Allah, there is no deity except Him." Suddenly the boy fainted, then opened his eyes, clear, normal, human. He whispered, "It's gone. It's really gone." Samira wept with relief. Another miracle, another confirmation. The rising opposition word spread. Zayd began receiving hundreds of messages from around the world. Families, scholars, imams, doctors, all asking for guidance, desperate to understand how a single surah could have such power, but not everyone was pleased. Anonymous emails warned him to stop. A scholar publicly mocked him, calling his teachings mythical superstition. A prominent speaker accused him of inventing stories for fame, but Zayd knew what he had seen. He had no interest in fame, only in awakening hearts. He wrote in his personal journal, "Surah Al-Baqarah is not a charm, it is a command. It transforms homes into fortresses, hearts into shields, and lives into light, but only for those who commit to it completely." The gathering of light one night, Zayd had a dream, this time even clearer than before. He saw a vast desert filled with Muslims from every corner of the world, young and old, rich and poor. Each held a copy of the Qur'an, and above their heads floated a luminous verse. "And we sent down in the Qur'an that which is a healing and a mercy for the believers." Surah Al-Isra, 1782. Suddenly, shadows approached them, dark, fast, monstrous. But every time they got close, the verses surrounding the believers exploded into light, and the shadows were vaporized. He heard a voice say, "Gather them, teach them, lead them. The final trials are near." The final light, a battle between darkness and devotion months, had passed since Zayd's return from Cairo. The miracle with the schoolteacher's son had ignited something global. He was no longer a lone researcher. Across the Muslim world, people had begun reciting Surah Al-Baqarah daily, sharing stories of protection, healing, and spiritual revival. But with the light rising, so too did the darkness. The network of Light Zayd launched an online initiative called the Baqarah Revival Project, where Muslims from over 60 countries joined together in commitment to recite Surah Al-Baqarah in their homes, masjids, schools, and hospitals. They called themselves the Guardians of Light. From Jakarta to Johannesburg, London to Lahore, stories flooded in. A family in Malaysia claimed their home was freed from unexplained fires after 30 days of Baqarah recitation. A woman in Tunisia, who had battled sleep paralysis for a decade, found complete peace. a convert in Brazil, said that after she started reciting Baqarah daily, her heart felt like it finally found home. Zayd documented every testimony. They weren't exaggerations, they were signs. This is a movement of hearts, he told his followers. Surah Al-Baqarah is a divine sword, and the world is beginning to remember how to wield it. The rise of opposition. But with this rise came fierce backlash. A powerful, secretive group of occultists who had long manipulated people through magic and whispers of jinn noticed the disruption. Their power weakened every time Baqarah was recited. Their influence, built through fear, control and illusion, was collapsing. They called themselves the Silent Chain, a network that had operated for centuries in the shadows. One of their leaders, a French-Algerian man named Alim Azrak, was known for his mastery of dark knowledge. He had infiltrated governments, controlled media, and destroyed scholars who dared expose him. He issued a statement in the deep web. The one called Zayd must be silenced. He has stirred the book that binds our kind. And so they prepared their final strike. The gathering in Istanbul, Zayd, unaware of the incoming danger, organized a monumental event in Istanbul, a global Qur'an conference themed Light Over Darkness, reviving the forgotten power of the book. Thousands registered. Scholars, students, families, all came. The opening session was to be held in the Suleymaniye Mosque, one of the holiest places in the city. As Zayd stood before the crowd, preparing to open with the first verse of Surah Al-Baqarah, a blackout struck. The entire masjid went dark. A violent wind slammed through the halls. Panic spread. Babies cried. Phones flickered. Zayd knew this was not a coincidence. He raised his voice above the chaos. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed devil. Then he began, Alif, Lam, Mim. This is the book in which there is no doubt, a guidance for those who are conscious of Allah. His voice echoed unnaturally loud. As he recited, the chandeliers shook, but the fear began to melt. The reciters among the audience joined him. Then more, then hundreds. Together they filled the mosque with the full surah. When they reached Ayat 286, the final verse, the lights snapped back on. Peace filled the air. It was as if the city had breathed out a sigh of divine relief. Zayd looked around and whispered, It's not me. It's him. Always him. The letter of the dying occultist. A week after the Istanbul event, Zayd received a strange envelope. No sender. Inside, a handwritten note. You have broken the chain. My power is no more. I once danced with devils. Now I beg Allah's mercy. Your light reached me. I recited Baqarah for the first time, and I wept. It was signed Alim Azrak. He died 2 days later, found alone in a worn-down apartment in Paris, surrounded by burned talismans and a Qur'an. The legacy Zayd knew his work had only begun. He declined book deals, refused fame, and instead focused on teaching. He trained thousands in the spiritual disciplines of Surah Al-Baqarah, not just reciting it, but living it. He emphasized 5 core principles. Consistency, recite regularly, daily or weekly. Don't let it gather dust. Sincerity, speak every verse with heart, not just tongue. Understanding, learn the meanings, reflect on the commands. Protection, use it as a shield, play it in homes, recite it over your children. Propagation, teach others, pass on the power. Don't let it die. The final dream. Zayd, now aged and wise, had one final dream before his death. He saw the world covered in darkness. Cities falling, morals crumbling, families divided. Evil normalized, but from every corner of the globe, beams of light shot up into the sky, each from a home where Surah Al-Baqarah was being recited. The lights connected, forming a shield around the earth. Then a voice echoed, As long as my words are alive in their hearts, no shadow will consume them. Zayd woke with tears. He smiled, knowing his mission had succeeded. Conclusion. The story of Surah Al-Baqarah is not fiction. It is not myth. It is living power embedded in divine language, accessible to every believer who opens the book. And perhaps, just perhaps, you, the reader, are now a part of this story. Will you recite it? Will you protect your home? Will you be one of the guardians of light? The secret power was never really hidden. We just forgot to look for it. So remember me, I will remember you, and be grateful to me, and do not deny me. Surah Al-Baqarah 252. The End.